I have a very special guest today on the Financial Fast Lane, Mr. David Walker, the former Comptroller General of the United States and former trustee of Social Security and Medicare trust funds.
Hello, Lane. How are you?
Hey, very good, Dave. Good morning.
Good morning.
Sure appreciate you taking some time to answer some questions and talk with our audience here.
Glad it worked out.
Yeah, I like that shirt. I think there's probably a story behind that.
Yeah, well, I took up golf about 2 years ago because I never had time to play it. And, I used to be a partner with Arthur Andersen, and the Masters or Augusta National was a client. And so, but I got this shirt online. So I did not go to the Masters this year, but I thought it was a good combination. I do wear a Rolex, I was a client, and I am patriotic. So it kind of had it all,
Yeah, awesome. Well, great. Well, hey, it's really an honor to have you on the channel, and I have looked up to you for years. I view you as someone with really high integrity and certainly a love for the country, and so I really appreciate your insights. And you really have a unique perspective, right? Having with your background and having worked in the government. So, kind of as an outline, I'd like to kind of first maybe talk, if you would, touch a little bit on your career and specifically your time as the Comptroller General.
I'm happy to do that. I'm Dave Walker. I've got, over half of my career has been in the private sector, where I was a certified public accountant and, among other things, a partner with Arthur Andersen, senior strategic advisor for PricewaterhouseCoopers public sector, now known as Guidehouse. I have run 3 federal agencies, 2 in the executive branch dealing with pensions and healthcare, 1 in the legislative branch, the Government Accountability Office, where I was Comptroller General of the United States, which in English is Auditor General, Chief Accountability Officer, and CEO of the GAO. I've been a trustee of Social Security and Medicare, 1 of 2 public trustees. I've run 2 not-for-profits. I've been, chairman of the Audit Committee of the UN. I've been on the Defense Business Board on and off for 20 years. And I've been a professor at the Naval Academy, but, and I've done a few other things, but that's kind of the summary, I think.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So one of the things that you did as the Comptroller General is you actually changed the name, right? It was General Accounting Office is what it was?
That's correct.
Can you tell me a little bit about that and the story behind it?
Sure. Well, the brand name has always been GAO, and I didn't want to change the brand name, but, the legal formal name for the agency was very misleading. First, general is a title for an individual, not for an organization, in my view. Secondly, accounting. The only accounting we did was accounting for ourselves. We didn't do accounting for anybody else. Believe me, we would have a very different accounting system if we were the ones doing the accounting for the federal government. But we were about accountability. The agency was about how do you improve performance and assure accountability for the benefit of the American people. And obviously, we were in office. And so I knew when I came in that we needed to make that change, but that's not the first thing you do to change, an agency's name after it had been in existence for, 70 years already. It took legislation. I mean, I couldn't do it. It took legislation to be able to do it. So several years into my tenure, I changed it, but kept the GAO, which was more reflective of what we did. We do oversight, insight, foresight, and the things that go far beyond accounting. Although accounting's important, accounting is how you keep score, and how you keep score matters.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. I kind of always wondered about that name change, how that came about. But so let's talk about Social Security and Medicare in the shortfall. This projected. I know it weighs on a lot of people, their minds. Kind of, if you can kind of summarize what that looks like, and then maybe some of the potential likely outcomes. Yeah.
Well, Social Security is the most popular federal program, one of the best managed federal programs. It's critically important because it's lifted tens of millions of seniors out of poverty, and it is a base defined benefit program that provides a certain amount for your entire life, indexed for inflation. For people who end up contributing into the system for at least 10 years. and provides higher levels of benefits for replacement level of benefits for lower income people and less for higher income people. But everybody gets something. It's not a welfare program. It's a social insurance program. The program had surpluses for a lot of years. Now it has annual deficits. The so-called trust fund, which I call a trust of the government fund, which is a different story. The trust fund is going to be exhausted, projected in 9 years. If that happens, then by law, the program can only pay benefits from trust fund assets, which means that if there's a mismatch between revenues and expenses or payments, then it's got to be addressed. And the way that it would be addressed is automatic 21% across the board benefit cuts, increasing over time. That's obviously inequitable. It's unacceptable. I don't think that will happen, but we need to make reforms to the program, in order to prevent that from happening. And unfortunately, both of the major presidential candidates have said they won't touch Social Security. And yet I'm pretty confident that they don't support a 21% across the board cut in benefits in 9 years, because that's what you get by doing nothing. And unfortunately, Washington's done a lot of doing nothing for a while.
Right. We feel the content of this interview is really important, so wanted to encourage you to share it with others. Give us a thumbs up if you like it. Also, if you have some interest in tax planning, Social Security planning, you can go to the financialfastlane.com for more information. So what do you think the reforms will actually look like? I mean, your best prediction.
Well, my latest book is America in 2040, Still a Superpower, ? And in that book, I lay out a number of illustrative reforms to Social Security, Medicare, taxes, defense, a number of areas that a supermajority of American voters agreed with. And in the case of Social Security, what they agreed with was they agreed that we need to reform the base defined benefit program, keep it defined benefit, which provides certainty, security for your entire life, index for inflation, but that we need to add a supplemental automatic savings account on top for those who otherwise aren't saving through employer-sponsored arrangements, that the people would be an individual account, they would own it, it would be their money, they would have limited options to invest, pooled investment, minimal expenses, so that we can get our savings rate up, and so that people will understand that Social Security is not intended to be your retirement. It's only intended to be the foundation. And just like a house, you have to build on the foundation in order to have a livable dwelling. And so, that was the intellectual framework. I can go into more details if you want, but we got 77% agreement on reforms based on that intellectual framework. And by the way, that would involve both revenue increases and benefit, changes as well.
Okay. Yeah.
But here's the key, Lane. Really, it's only going to affect people that are younger than 55. I'm giving you a guesstimate, all right? And the younger you are and the wealthier you are, the more you'll be affected. But everybody will get more than they expect to get, not more than they've been promised, more than they expect to get. And here's the key. Seniors think they're going to get ripped off. I could use other words, but I won't. That's not going to happen, okay? Young people don't think they're going to get anything.
Yeah, that's all.
So we can restructure the program, phase it in over time, and every generation gets more than they think they're going to get. I call that a win.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. It's definitely something that a lot of people worry about. So let's talk a little bit about the national debt, our deficits, and what that is leading to, and then what you kind of your take on taxes and future taxes.
Yeah. Well, I focus on three things with regard to fiscal policy. I focus on debt to GDP. Not all debt's bad. Sometimes you have to take on debt. Sometimes you take it on for investments in the future. But when you're running huge deficits and taking on debt just for normal operations without an emergency or anything else, that's fundamentally imprudent and not sustainable. And that's what we've been doing for a while. So I look at debt to GDP, and then I look at how much is mandatory spending, meaning we've written a blank check, it's on autopilot, we don't have a way to control it. And then I look at interest as a percentage of the budget. When you look at that, when you consider all debt, in other words, that $35 trillion, which is the debt subject to the debt ceiling, as compared to the economy, it's 125% of the economy, all-time record, and projected to go a lot higher. When you look at mandatory spending as a percentage of the budget, just direct spending, it's about 73%, all-time record, and projected to go higher. When you look at interest as a percentage of the budget, we're now spending more on interest than we are on national defense, and it's the fastest growing expense. And what do you get for interest? Nothing. So we've got flashing red lights on all three. Part of the challenge is how do you help Americans understand the impact of this? And, inflation is caused by many things, but one of the things it's caused by is excessive spending, deficits, mounting debt burdens, okay, which was a major contributing factor to the excess inflation that we had. People didn't like that. If you don't like that, then we better get control of this because it's going to get a lot worse if we don't end up putting our finances in order. The second issue is monetary policy. The Federal Reserve kept interest rates too low, too long. They ended up buying a vast majority of the new debt that was issued, trillions of dollars. That's like self-dealing in your own debt. That's like trying to avoid market forces. That's not a good idea. And so we've got to get our fiscal act together, tax and spending, and we got to have some monetary reforms. On the facts, we're spending as a percentage of GDP more than the post-World War II average, headed up. We're taxing at a little bit less than the post-World War II average, expected to be reasonably stable. We've got to bend the curve down on spending as a percentage of GDP, and we need to bend the curve up somewhat on revenues as a percentage of GDP. Much more of a spending problem than revenues. We want to have pro-growth policies, but the hole's so deep, you can't grow your way out of this problem. You got to make tough choices.
Yeah, tough choices for sure. So I guess number one, people should count on Social Security, right? I think that's what you...
They're going to get it. The question is, if you're over 55, you're probably going to get pretty much what you've been promised. Depending upon how much money you make, you may end up getting somewhat less if you're higher income, okay, than you've been promised. You may end up having to pay higher taxes, payroll taxes, than what you're paying now, if you're upper income, if you will. Right now, there's a cap, of 160-something thousand. That could go up like it did in 1983, but not likely to be eliminated altogether. If you're younger than that age, the benefit formula is likely to be changed to provide more benefits for lower income, somewhat less benefits for higher income. The retirement age may be delayed another couple of years over a number of years. Okay. The inflation index may change, but, there's no way we're going to abandon this program. Okay. I mean, it needs to be reformed. We need to reform it sooner rather than later, but it's not going to be abandoned. And those that think it's not going to be here are not right.
Right. So we kind of have a math problem as far as the taxes, the revenue, the spending. So, and you talk about tough decisions. So what are some of those tough decisions you think it's going to take?
Well, I think it's going to, first, we have to have three things in order to be able to make the decisions, and then we can talk about what some of the decisions might have to be. But one, we have to have a president who makes this a priority and uses the so-called bully pulpit to go to the people, to help them understand that we're on an unsustainable path. We've got to make tough choices sooner rather than later. We haven't had one since Bill Clinton. Hopefully we'll get one after this election. Whoever wins is likely to only have one term left, so they don't have to worry about re-election. Hopefully that'll give them some motivation to do the right thing, but so far they haven't been providing any credible path forward, not only with regard to the overall fiscal situation, but also how we're going to save Social Security, which is important. Okay. Yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we need a constitutional amendment that will limit how much debt we can take on as a percentage of the economy. The debt ceiling is a bad joke. It's failed miserably. The only thing that can bind current and future Congresses is a constitutional amendment. Statutory approaches don't work. One Congress can't bind the next Congress. Only constitutional amendments can. I'm working on that right now. And the third thing we need is that we need a statutory, meaning by law, commission that will engage the American people, as I've done in 47 states plus D.C., with the facts, the truth, the tough choices, solicit input, where everything's on the table. Not everything's equal, but everything's on the table. Make a package of recommendations with an up or down vote in Congress. Till the ground, prepare the way, set the table for a tough vote. The people are way ahead of the politicians here. They know you can't continue to do what we're doing. They're willing to accept tough choices if they're consistent with a plan that meets a goal and is consistent with principles, values that bring people together rather than divide them apart. I got 77 to 97% agreement for representative groups of voters on packages of reforms that would accomplish the objective.
I've heard you kind of refer to the Roman Empire to the United States. Kind of summarize that.
Here's what's funny. I had the number one rated op-ed in the Global Financial Times in 2007. And just this morning, the person with the Financial Times, who used to be with the Financial Times, is not anymore, who worked with me on that, to get it placed. I mean, I wrote it. I don't have ghostwriters. Never have. Yeah. Contacted me and said he reposted it on his social media, and I shared it on my social media this morning because it says that people need to be reminded. What I said was, America needs to learn from the past, learn from history, and learn from others, and that we had some troubling similarities to the fall of the Roman Empire. And by the way, it's much worse now than it was then. Yeah. And what I said is that Rome fell for a number of reasons. It was the greatest superpower in history, and it fell for several reasons: fiscal irresponsibility, political incivility, moral decline, overextended military, and inability to control its borders. Do those sound familiar? They're even much more apparent today than they were in 2007. Yeah. And so we need to learn from history, we need to learn from others, and we need to get on with doing what needs to be done to create a better future.
Yeah. What would you tell the average American who's maybe approaching retirement? Most of their money is in tax-deferred accounts. What should they do as individuals to prepare?
Well, first, most people, including myself, have been told my whole life that, you're gonna be at a lower, tax rate when you retire than you are when you're working. Well, that's clearly true for social insurance taxes, right? I mean, if you're not working, if you don't have self-employment income, you don't have to pay social insurance taxes. But with regard to income taxes, I don't believe that's true. The bottom line is that we are going to have more revenues. We'll get some of it through social insurance taxes, primarily raising the payroll tax cap for those that would be affected by that, but not eliminating it. But we're going to have to, most of our revenue comes from personal income taxes. So something's going to have to happen there. And therefore, that means you need to be thinking about not just your savings and investment strategies, you need to think about your tax strategies, and what you can do to minimize taxes going forward. Some of that might involve, donor trust. Some of it might involve Roth conversions. There's a number of different things that you can think about, but that needs to be part of the portfolio of assessments that you're doing in trying to help plan for your retirement and through retirement, including to what you want to do with any legacy assets you may have left over after you pass.
Right. Comeback America. I know you tell us a little bit about that. What's that initiative about? And why did you do it?
I'll tell what it was about, because Comeback America no longer exists.
Okay.
I left the government and became the first CEO of the Peter G. Peterson Foundation, put it on the map, staffed it, got it going. And after 2.5, 3 years, I ended up creating the Comeback America initiative because I wanted to be even more aggressive than the Peterson Foundation was. I wanted to deal with more issues and not just focus on the federal government, but also state and local government. And so I created something called the Come Back America Initiative. And the reason that I called it an initiative is because it was going to be for 3 years. It was only going to be for 3 years. That was the understanding that I had. And the purpose of it was to engage in much more active citizen education engagement efforts, which included, among other things, a 10,000-mile, 27-state national fiscal responsibility bus tour that was funded primarily, but not exclusively, by H. Ross Perot Sr. And we made a difference. I mean, the public's concern for this issue increased. In addition to that, we were able to demonstrate that the public was ahead of the politicians. We were able to provide illustrative reforms that if we got some leadership, that we could end up getting, accomplished. So that's what it was all about. I'm still involved in a number of different organizations, fighting for fiscal responsibility, fighting for a commission, fighting for a constitutional amendment, and I'll continue to be. Because I love my country and I love my family, and I don't make any money on this. I mean, I'm doing it for love of country and family.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I think you probably have a golf game to get to, right? Today.
No, I'm not playing golf today. It's going to be like 100 degrees.
Okay.
And high humidity. And believe it or not, I've got like back-to-back Zoom calls, for today. But it was good being with you, Lane. It's nice meeting you.
You too. Thank you.
Hope to see you again sometime. All right?
All right. Thank you, Dave, very much. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You bet. Bye-bye.